This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
Good morning, you're watching News 9. I'm Karthik Malhotra, and there's a lot that we've got packed in over the next 1 hour for you. To begin with, of course, if the waiting period for US visa applications wasn't enough, the US also now wants Indians to disclose all their social media handles. Well, India is finally fighting back. Also on the show, we'll bring you Anil Ambani's tremendous comeback, not just in all of 2025, but especially in the month of June. And finally, after Sensex crossed 1,000 points in trade yesterday, the question really is Sensex now on the right momentum to reclaim the lost ground? You're watching Morning Brief at 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. First up, let's bring you the headlines that we're tracking for you this Friday morning. India urges the United States to assess visa applications on merit after new rules mandate disclosure of social media handles. India and the United States hold crucial trade talks in US as July 9th tariff deadline nears. Agriculture remains a key hurdle in negotiations. Meanwhile, Donald Trump hints at very big trade deal with India as both sides push to expand bilateral trade to $500 billion by 2030. Trump also announces new trade agreement with China but provides no specific details about what the deal includes. India has imposed 5-year anti-dumping duty on plastic processing machines from China and Taiwan, clarifies rules on mica pigments used in auto sector. The Reserve Bank of India urges all banks to cut lending rates further for faster transmission of 50 basis points repo rate reduction. Walmart CEO Doug McMillon meets Prime Minister Modi to discuss deepening India partnership, a $10 billion export goal and investments in Flipkart and PhonePe discussed. Actor investor Suniel Shetty, cricketer KL Rahul and actor Ahan Shetty back electric mobility startup Exelmoto, which launches pedal-assisted e-bikes starting at 42,000 rupees. India's millionaire migration slows to 3,500 in the year 2025, even as global wealth relocation hits record high. UAE and US remain top destinations. A top story this morning, the Ministry of External Affairs has responded to new US visa guidelines that require Indian applicants to disclose all social media handles used over the past 5 years. Addressing the media on Thursday, MEA spokesperson Ranveer Jaiswal emphasized that while visa and immigration rules are a sovereign matter, India believes that all visa applications by Indian citizens should be judged purely on merit. Jaiswal said, "We have seen the guidelines issued by the US Embassy requiring the provision of social media identifiers. It is our belief that Indian nationals should be assessed fairly. We remain engaged with the US side on mobility and consular issues to safeguard the interest of our citizens," unquote. Now remember, this comes after the US Embassy in India issued an advisory asking visa applicants to list all social media usernames used across platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube and LinkedIn, even if those accounts are inactive. The embassy warned that omitting the information could lead to visa denial and ineligibility for future visas. In a separate post, the embassy also urged student visa applicants, those applying for F, M and J non-immigrant visas, to make their social media accounts public for vetting purposes. The move is part of ongoing efforts under the US administration to tighten screening and ensure the integrity of the visa process. Meanwhile, India says it is closely monitoring the situation and continuing dialogue with the United States. Listen in to what Randhir Jaiswal said.
On the guidelines regarding visa issues, yes. You see, visa matters, immigration matters are matters which pertain to sovereign functions of any country. But having said that, we have seen the guidelines issued by the US side, the US Embassy here, US government, regarding providing details of social media identifiers in visa applications. But it is our belief that all visa applications of Indian nationals should be treated on the basis of merit. And we remain engaged with the US side on all mobility issues and consular issues to ensure that the legitimate interests of Indian nationals are safeguarded.
Staying with India and the United States, the high-level Indian delegation is currently in the United States to push forward talks on a bilateral trade deal as both sides aim to finalize key differences. The delegation is led by India's chief negotiator Rajesh Agarwal. According to media sources, agriculture has emerged as one of the crucial points, especially around American demands for lower tariffs on genetically modified crops like maize and soybean. The Indian government, however, remains cautious about opening up sensitive sectors to such imports, citing domestic concerns. The latest round of talks, expected to last 2 days, is being seen as a final push to reach consensus before the US moves ahead with reciprocal tariffs. India faces the prospect of a 26% tariff being imposed on July 9th. Now, originally, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Donald Trump had agreed to aim for a trade deal by the fall of this year. But the reciprocal tariff threat led both sides to accelerate negotiations in hopes of securing an early agreement. Now, while discussions remain ongoing, Indian officials have made it clear that they are not willing to sign any deal that does not safeguard India's strategic as well as economic interests. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has hinted at the possibility of a major trade deal with India, describing it as, I quote, a very big one that may be on the horizon. The remarks came during the Big Beautiful event held at the White House, where Trump pointed to recent progress in trade negotiations. Trump told the gathering, and I quote, "We have one coming up, maybe with India, very big one. Everyone wants to make a deal," unquote. He also said that the US won't be making trade agreements with every country and warned some may instead face steep tariffs up to 45% if negotiations don't move forward. Listen in to Donald Trump.
But we're having some great deals. We have one coming up, maybe with India, very big one, where we're going to open up India. In the China deal, we're starting to open up China, things that never really could have happened. And the relationship with every country has been very good.
Trump also announced that Washington signed a new trade agreement with China, though he offered no specific details of the deal. Trump made the remark during a White House event promoting a government spending package he urged Congress to pass before the July 4th holiday. Earlier this month, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent led a US delegation to London for closed-door trade negotiations with Chinese Vice Premier He Lifang. The two sides announced a deal had been reached after 2 days of talks, but again withheld any details. Let's listen again to the US President.
We just signed with China yesterday, right? Just signed with China. We have everybody. We're not going to make deals with everybody. Some we're just going to send them a letter, say, thank you very much. You're going to pay 25, 35, 45%. That's the easy way to do it. And my people don't want to do it that way. They want to do some of it, but they want to make more deals than I would do.
Now, staying with trade deals and tariff, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said on Thursday that the bloc had received the latest US proposal for ongoing tariff negotiations. Speaking after an EU summit in Brussels, she said all options remained on the table, stressing that while the EU was ready for a deal, it was also preparing for the possibility of no agreement, including consulting on potential countermeasures to defend European interests.
I briefed leaders on the current state of play in our trade talks with the United States. President Trump and I had a good discussion at the G7 summit in Canada. Back then, we agreed to speed up the work with a clear goal, an agreement before the 9th of July. Today, we received the latest US document for further negotiations. We are assessing it as we speak right now. So our message today is clear. We are ready for a deal. At the same time, we are preparing for the possibility that no satisfactory agreement is reached. This is why we consulted on a rebalancing list, and we will defend the European interest as needed. In short, all options remain on the table.
And India has imposed anti-dumping duties on plastic processing machines imported from China as well as Taiwan, aiming to protect its domestic industry from unfair trade practices. The Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs issued a notification on Thursday confirming that the duty will remain in place for 5 years. The move follows a recommendation by the Directorate General of Trade Remedies, which found that the imports were being dumped into the Indian market at unfairly low prices, harming local manufacturers. In a separate clarification, the CBIC also addressed concerns related to mica pearl scent pigments used widely in the automobile sector for a shiny coating effect. The board stated that these pigments were imported from China and will not attract a countervailing duty. However, whether they are subject to anti-dumping duty will depend on the specific grade of the pigment. Remember, India had first imposed anti-dumping duties on pigments from China in November 2023. Now, Thursday's clarification is expected to offer more certainty to auto and coating industries relying on this material for their production. And moving now to the central bank, the Reserve Bank of India has called on all banks to further reduce their lending rates, aiming to speed up the transmission of recent policy rate cuts to borrowers. Earlier this month, the Reserve Bank of India had slashed the key repo rate by 50 basis points, a major move to stimulate credit growth and support economic activity. While several banks have already responded, including large lenders like the State Bank of India, Bank of Baroda and HDFC Bank, who passed on the full rate cut within days of the June 6th announcement, the RBI is urging broader and more consistent action across the sector. The RBI bulletin also highlighted that previous repo rate cuts from February and April had already filtered into lending benchmarks like the external benchmark-based lending rates and marginal cost of funds-based lending rates as well. In another key move, the RBI had earlier reduced the cash reserve ratio or CRR by 100 basis points to 3% of net demand and time liabilities. The cut will be implemented in stages, though the later half of the year. And now bringing together Bollywood glamour and sporting star power, actor, investor Suniel Shetty, cricketer KL Rahul and actor Ahan Shetty have teamed up to support Exelmoto, a new electric mobility startup founded by automotive designer and entrepreneur Akshay Vardhe. Exelmoto aims to shake up India's two-wheeler EV market by launching pedal-assist electric bikes, vehicles that look like motorcycles but are priced like premium bicycles. The company is positioning itself as a category creator targeting urban commuters with a stylish, affordable alternative to traditional scooters. Now, pre-orders for Exelmoto's first two models, E1X Kai and E2R Rosso, open on June 28th with only 999 units available initially for a token booking fee of just 499 rupees. The unisex bikes are priced under 42,000 rupees and offer a removable lithium battery, a 40 to 60 kilometer range, packed tires and no registration or driving license needed. Now, while Suniel Shetty described the brand as a proud Indian product built for the country, KL Rahul remarked that Exelmoto successfully combines purpose with performance and that the product is designed to resonate with India's new generation of riders. Well, earlier this month, TV9's MD and CEO, Mr. Varun Das, had spoken to Suniel Shetty at the News9 Global Summit in Dubai on his investments in startups. Let's listen in.
Now, under Action Hero to Business Strategist, Obviously, there were many roles in between. One of the fabulous roles that you played is Hera Fairy, Kansham. So the whole transition that you had made and come to being a business strategist, which is possibly your primary identity now that you are an investor. How did that transition happen? You must be one of the first ones in film industry who had taken investment in startup in a very systematic way. I think there are more following that footstep. Internationally also, Robin Gosling is possibly one who's very active there. But how did this thought come to you? How did you go about making this transition?
I think for me, life came a full circle. First was business with Dad, then my own startup that I had called Mischief, which was fashion, which was extremely popular brand. Then came cinema. Dad said, one life to live, give it your shot, give it your best shot. Treat your work like your own child, it'll give you back. I did that. Then came a low phase in my life. Then came Dad, who was unwell. I decided, you know what, instead of taking up crap, let's just say quits to it and spend time with him. Spent a good 4 or 5 years with him. That's when I got into understanding what other people were doing. Then came the pandemic, and then came the journey of startups and young entrepreneurs from home. And that opportunity when I said, you know what, जब हम फिल्में करते थे और पैसे invest करते थे, and used to run the business on your own, it didn't work because I didn't give my time to it. I didn't love it like I should, because that's what business also grows on. But then I saw young founders who were doing great stuff, and I said, let's back them. I saw success in some of my earlier ventures. It could be 5%, 10%, 15%, that doesn't matter. But I saw a plus in my balance sheet, and that's when I said, you know what, अच्छे लोगों के साथ चलो. तब पहले opportunities नहीं थी. अब opportunities है तो अच्छे लोगों के साथ चलो तो फायदा कहीं ना कहीं होगा ही.
Your celebrity status, is it an asset or liability for you?
It's an absolute asset. If you know that you want to do things right in your life. If there's a shortcut that you're taking, अगर मैं कुछ गलत कर रहा हूँ, then I'll have a fear in my mind. I won't be able to have that large heart and say, yes, I'm doing that business. But because I'm doing it right, I believe it's an asset because it reaches the people. You get the eyeballs. Of course, after that, it's the product that matters and the founders and the service that matters. So it does give you an opportunity, and having friends who are very keen that, "Arey yaar, aap agar invest kar rahe ho, to let us also invest." So that gives me, the risk is shared with a whole lot of people. At the same time, you can help the kids grow.
Suniel Shetty there speaking to TV9's MD and CEO Barun Das at the News9 Global Summit in Dubai. And while staying with the UAE, let's move on to another story. India's wealth migration is showing signs of slowing down as fewer millionaires are now expected to leave the country to settle abroad. According to the newly released Henley Private Wealth Migration Report 2025, only 3,500 Indian millionaires are projected to relocate overseas this year, a decline from 4,300 in 2024 and 5,100 the previous year. Now, the data indicates a downward trend in overseas migration among Indian high net worth individuals, even though the total number of millionaires in India has grown by a staggering 72% over the last decade. Now, despite the slowdown in departures, Henley and partners estimated that the wealth leaving India through migration and migrating millionaires in 2025 will still amount to as much as a whopping $26.2 billion. Now, the United Kingdom is projected to see the largest net outflow, losing 16,500 millionaires in 2025, more than double China's estimated loss of 7,800 millionaires. On the other hand, the UAE remains its top spot as the world's leading wealth magnet, expected to welcome over 9,800 millionaires, followed by the United States with 7,500. And with that, we will slip into a very short break. But coming up on the other side, after a momentous 1,000-point rally on the Sensex yesterday, markets have again opened in the green, and the Sensex is now touching the 84,000 levels. Will this momentum continue? Kranti Bathini will be here to tell us. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
It's never easy to choose a new path, stand out in the crowd, to have your own new identity. The journey to self-reliance begins when you're fully prepared. Tata Motors Commercial Vehicles presents the new Ace Pro, now in biofuel, EV and petrol variants. So get ready to say it loud. Ace Pro, अब मेरी बारी.
पार्टी हॉर्न्स भी होने चाहिए, मंगा लेती हूँ. खाकरा मंगवा लेती हूँ. थेपला भी मंगवाएगी. थेपला भी मंगवा लेती हूँ. अलग अलग मत ऑर्डर कर, एक बार में मंगवा. एफर्ट्स और पैसे दोनों बचा. सेविंग्स की विद्या तो कोई तुझसे सीखे. जब पैसा हो बचाना, फेडरल बैंक से रिश्ता बनाना.
Welcome back. You're watching News 9. Let's bring you all the market action. Let's begin first with the United States. Wall Street ended higher on Thursday with the Dow, S&P 500 and Nasdaq each gaining just under 1%. The S&P and Nasdaq are now approaching all-time closing highs. Meanwhile, the US dollar slipped against major currencies and the Treasury yields edged slightly lower. Take a look at this report.
Wall Street closed higher on Thursday, with the Dow, S&P 500, and Nasdaq all adding just under 1%. The S&P and the Nasdaq are now within striking distance of all-time closing highs. Meanwhile, the U.S. dollar dropped against major currencies and Treasury yields edged lower. Rob Slimer, technical strategist at RBC Wealth Management, said that particularly benefited tech and financial services stocks, among others.
They're exporters, so their goods become cheaper for folks outside of the country to buy. And so there's an area, the industrial sector has been making new relative or new price highs over the last number of weeks as well. And so we have quite a few areas of the market leading. I think this decline in the dollar is helping. I think the decline in interest rates is helping.
Among individual movers, shares of Micron Technology dropped 1%, despite the company forecasting better than expected fourth quarter revenue. Miners Freeport McMoran and Southern Copper jumped by nearly 7% and 8% respectively, thanks to copper prices touching a 3-month high. And shares of Nike gained more than 5% in extended trading after the company reported a smaller than expected drop in quarterly revenue and beat profit estimates.
And with the Wall Street really registering some handsome gains, that sentiment doesn't seem to be passing on to Asia this morning. In fact, most Asian indices are in the red this morning, barring Japan, which continues with its second-day rally, and of course India also in the green this morning. Let's look at the Hang Seng, which is more or less flat, just marginally up in trade. But both Taiwan's TAIEX, the Shanghai Composite Index, and this comes despite Donald Trump hinting at a trade deal with China. The Shanghai Composite Index is down about 0.33% in trade this morning. And so is the case, in fact, with the South Korean Kospi, which is continuing with its second day of cuts this morning. So this definitely seems to be one of those days when whatever Donald Trump has hinted on with trade deals in China, not reflecting well on China. And of course, South Korea continues to lose ground in trade. Meanwhile, the Indian markets have opened slightly positively this morning. In fact, they opened with gains of about 0.2% and trimmed down to about 0.1%. Let's look at the Nifty 50 heat map first and try and see which are the sectors which seem to be gaining or paining this morning, as they say. Well, Reliance Industries is up. The entire oil pack seems to be a little bit in the positive territory, with Reliance Industries up 0.4%, ONGC up 0.6%, Coal India up again 0.6% or so. Meanwhile, the IT sector this morning, as always, is continuing to surprise us with no real trend line which seems to be visible, because you've got stocks like TCS and Infosys up this morning, HCL beating them in performance, up about 0.5%, but you've got a Wipro which is down about 0.2% or so in early trade. Remember, these are early trade figures and numbers would rationalize as the trading action continues during the day. Meanwhile, look at the consumer durable space, where you've got M&M, which is up about 0.6% in trade. Tata Motors is trying to make a comeback, up about 1% or so in early numbers right now. Let's look at the mood check and look at the Sensex and the Nifty 50 numbers this morning. Well, Sensex had inched closer to the 83,930 levels in early trade. It has lost that momentum in the first few minutes. It's back now to almost the same levels that it closed at yesterday. Similar story coming in even from the Nifty 50, which is at about 25,575 levels. Well, the hope, at least in some investors, was that today would be the day that the Sensex would breach that 84,000 level after it breached the 83,000 levels yesterday. But it seems that the interest in the trading in the morning seems to be ebbing out, at least in the first 5 minutes of trading or so. Meanwhile, the small cap and the mid cap stocks, the broader markets as they call it, are performing better than the other indices, the benchmark indices, with the small cap and mid cap both increasing in trade this morning. Volatility more or less holding at the same levels that we saw yesterday at about 12.75% or so. We've got a special guest joining us. Kranti Bhatini is here with us on Newsline this morning. Kranti, good morning. The hope really was that 84,000 is what the Sensex would reach today, but it seems like that momentum has slowed down a little bit in early trade.
Yeah, Karthik, markets are taking a small breather at this point of time, but FIs have been quite active in the recent trading days. So we need to see how the FIs momentum is going to be continued. They were the net buyers yesterday. If they continue their buying spear, definitely markets can touch the new highs that can be possible. At this point of time, we need to see how the day going to progress. It is just, we are just 20 minutes of the trading day after the opening. If the crucial levels to look for around 25,400, this is the level Nifty has to sustain. If this level can be sustained, we can see the new highs going ahead in the coming weeks.
Okay, the US markets are nearing their all-time highs, but India still seems to be, at least on the benchmark indices, India still seems to be about 2,500 odd points away from the September 27th highs on the Sensex. How long, Kranti, in your mind, before India is able to reclaim all that lost ground from September till June?
Karthik, as and when we come to this range, something unusual is taking place. That can be external factor or geopolitical events that are disturbing the party. Market is trying to gain this momentum, but something unusual is taking place around this level. So we need to see how the weekend is going to progress, how the geopolitical issues and also the big trade deal decisions are going to come up. So these are the external factors creating some kind of uncertainty around this range. If market could able to come through this news, okay, we can see the new high that can be possible. The joker in the pack, crude, has been right now coming to the comfortable level to country like India. If this crude oil correction going to continue, we can see most probably the market touching new highs. And in next few days, next few weeks, we're going to enter into the earning season again. So Q1 earning season and also the progress of monsoon has been good. If these internal factors going to progress well, we can see the new highs going ahead, Karthik.
Okay, well, everybody seems to be hoping for those new highs to be made again, Kranti. But from what it seems, the fundamentals, the India story looks intact. Monsoon is unlikely to play spoil sport this time around. And it seems that even the external uncertainties have been priced in. So what is really holding back investors from putting in more money right now, whether these are retail investors or institutional investors abroad? What is holding them back? Why are they sitting on the fence when it seems that we are fairly certain about all the uncertainties which are likely to hit us?
Yeah, Karthik, one thing is, whatever be the discussion we are making about the growth prospects and also the macro development are concerned, everything has to get translated into the earnings. Always stock prices are slaves to earnings. So the earning traction has to take the momentum. That's where everybody waiting on the sidelines, and especially the foreign portfolio managers and also the long only fund managers and also the DIS have been waiting for the earning traction. Once we get that earning traction of a kicker. There will be a flood of money that's going to hit the markets. That's where the overhang, whatever be the monetary policy decisions that the rate cut, the cool off inflation, and also gaining the demand and the GST collection, everything has to transform into earnings. That's where the market has been waiting to take the renewed interest in the markets at this point of time, Karthik. Once we get the earning traction, we can see that momentum again.
All right. So earnings is all that investors are waiting to see. Kranti, I want to bring in the sectoral perspective now, and let's start with the banking sector and mixed cues coming from the banking sector. Remember, the RBI bulletin spoke about transmission of that 50 basis point rate cut to lenders and to borrowers, but that seems to be, or perhaps that seems to be one of the many triggers which is disrupting the scene on banking stocks this morning. While SBI is up about 1.5%, you're seeing a 2% decline in Bajaj Finserv this morning, and even HDFC Bank is down about 1.2%. Bajaj Finance is down about 1.4%. Mixed cues coming from the banking sector. What's going on here, Kranti?
With respect to the banking sector is concerned, the stocks both in the PSU as well as private sector, they have been in a consolidation phase. Recent rate cut definitely helped the banks. The liquidity conditions has been improving. What exactly the banks have been waiting is the institutional lending has to go up, the capacity expansion and the credit growth has to take place in the banks to gain the earnings expansion. That's where the banks have been in sideways at this point of time. Definitely, once the issues of uncertainties with respect to the trade war that's taking place right now, once we get the clarity, we can see the expansion of the credit going ahead. That's where the banks are going to take the momentum in the medium to short term. We need to see how the further rate cuts that are going to come. That's also one of the key worry in the recent days. The crude was a worrying factor. So these are the reason, investors are sitting on sideways in the medium to short term. But definitely on a longer term perspective, banks are considered to be the epicenter of the growth, center of the growth. So any development in terms of the GDP and also the growth segments are concerned, they are going to have a positive impact on the banking sector. What's stopping at this point of time for the banks are concerned is the expansion of the credit that has to take place going ahead. Both the private sector capex and the government capex is going up. And once the traction comes up, banks are going to have good NIMs in the coming few quarters.
All right, and it is the banking sector that seems to now be dragging the markets. Let's pull up the Nifty 50 heat map again and see. In fact, the market started in the green and they've now slipped into the red. And the Nifty 50 heat map tells us that the maximum heat is actually coming from the banking and financial services side. Meanwhile, better news coming in from the IT space. Kranti, we talk about the IT space quite often, and it seems that this time around the Nasdaq hitting almost lifetime highs is translating well for banking, for IT stocks this morning. We've got TCS, which is up about 0.5%, HCL Tech up about 1% or so, Infy is also up about 0.25%. IT sector trying to offset the negativity from the banking sector, but failing just because of the sheer size of the banking and NBFC block on the Nifty 50, dragging the markets down. What happens now to the IT story from here on, given the fact that tariffs or oil prices for that matter are unlikely to impact the IT sector, Kranti? That sector is dealing with its own challenges, of AI being one of them.
Yeah, Karthik, you're absolutely correct. There is a lot of uncertainty around on these points. And also the US growth, that looks to be greater challenge. Just when the tariff implications are announced, one thing is there were concerns about US recession and the growth concerns. And a quarter back, in the month of Jan, there was humongous euphoria around the US economy is concerned. So the narrative is completely changed at this point of time. So next couple of quarters, US growth is extremely crucial for these tech companies. By and large, the broader businesses are concerned. So that's where the overhang. But we can see some kind of a cherry picking. Long only funds have been buying these bellwether IT companies. What we are witnessing in the medium to short term. But still, U.S. growth worries have been a key concern for IT companies, because since these companies are trading at the long-term averages, we tend to see some kind of a medium to short-term and long-term interest that's getting emerged for these IT companies.
All right, well, that seems to be the view on the IT sector. Stay with me, Kranti, as I want to also bring to our viewers an interesting trend which has now been making the news, and this comes by way of Reliance Group, the Anil Ambani-led Reliance Group. Now, from near bankruptcy to what looks like a blockbuster turnaround, Anil Ambani is back in business. Well, the younger Ambani, once written off in India's corporate story, has stunned markets in 2025 with a revival of his key companies, Reliance Infrastructure and Reliance Power. Let's try and break down the numbers and look at the year 2022, when Anil Ambani told a court his net worth was zero, down from as much as $42 billion in the year 2008. Now today, it's estimated to be over $500 million as Anil Ambani's net worth. Now his companies have posted record profits and wiped out thousands of crores of rupees in debt. Let's look at first Reliance Infrastructure, which has cleared 3,300 crore rupees in dues and is now totally debt-free. Reliance Power too has erased all its bank loans and is no longer in default. Now, this financial cleanup has triggered a profit explosion as well. Let's look at those numbers. Now, Reliance Power posted a profit of as much as 2,947 crore rupees in FY25, up from a loss of over 2,200 crore rupees the previous year. Meanwhile, Reliance Infrastructure turned around from a loss of 1,148 crore rupees to a staggering profit of over 9,100 crore rupees. Investors have responded with confidence, and in just 1 year, Reliance Power stock has jumped 173%. Reliance Infra has surged as much as 141%, and both stocks just in the month of June this year are up over 22%. Well, this isn't just a debt cleanup story, it's also a growth story. Reliance Power is now betting big on clean energy. It has bagged a 350 megawatt solar deal with SJVN. Also, a 2,000 crore rupees solar battery storage joint venture in Bhutan, the country's biggest private green energy project. Now, in the defense space, Reliance is working with Germany's Rheinmetall and Diehl Defense on ammunition projects worth 10,000 crore rupees. And in a major aerospace leap, Dassault Aviation has partnered with Reliance to make Falcon 2000 business jets in Nagpur. India's first Falcon jets are expected to roll out by the year 2028. Now, legal troubles that once haunted the group have also eased, with key court stays and regulatory release restoring investor faith. Now, whether this comeback sustains will depend on execution of all these projects, but for now, it seems Anil Ambani is no longer on the sidelines and he seems to be back in the saddle and back in the business arena. Kranti Batini continues to be with me. Kranti, talk to me about this remarkable recovery of Anil Ambani's Reliance Group. What we've seen, the numbers are fairly staggering. Stocks are up 173% and 141% for the year 2025, and in the month of June itself, up about 22%. What's really going to be the future of these two companies for an investor?
Karthik, I'll go back to the 2008 times when it was 2008 Jan when Reliance Power got listed on stock exchange. There was a euphoria and exuberance, and times were completely different. And in the past 15 years, and what investors witnessed, these companies were perennial wealth destroyers for the investors for a tune of 15 years. That's what the trade cycle one need to understand, how the things are going to turn in equity markets from the bankruptcy to how these companies have risen. One thing is the power sector. Coming to Reliance Power is concerned, the power sector, after a long consolidation and also the way what we witnessed, the contraction of these companies' earnings, right now, due to the boom in the economy and also the power demand is going to go up every year 9.5% at a CAGR basis. That's what Reliance Power is taking that advantage, and the tailwinds have been definitely helping these companies. That's how the companies can stand at this point of time on their feet. So given the kind of a past record of these companies are suitable for the high risk appetite investors at this point of time. Everybody witnessed what happened for these companies, how they got listed, the initial euphoria, how it's got fizzled out, and most of the group companies went into bankruptcy, the Reliance Capital, and many companies in this group literally went into bankruptcy. And these are the two companies could able to stand on its feet. So definitely from here onwards, we can see to make any kind of a serious investments are concerned, those who have the risk appetite, who can take the risk, they can consider these companies. Of course, what we witnessed is 100 become 5, or it almost went to 1 or 0. And from there, we are witnessing some kind of a revival in this group. So the growth in the economy and also the infrastructure business, the power especially, is helping the group to rise like a phoenix at this point of time.
And the fact that India continues to be completely bullish on Atmanirbharta when it comes to defense, the order book of Reliance Defense also seems to be shoring up. How do you think what is happening in Europe with their own defense, GDP target going up to about 5%, the budget going up to 5% of GDP, and India's own push for Make in India defense? How's that poised specifically for Reliance Infrastructure, and Reliance Defense happens to be part of Reliance Infra?
Karthik, just to make a disclosure, we have been quite bullish about defense is concerned from quite a long time. We have been. In fact, that paid well for our investor. But at this juncture, they are fully priced in with respect to the defense companies are concerned in the medium to short term. In the last fortnight, from the last couple of months' time, defense companies, almost all every company, from its lows, it went up by 50 to 100%, many of the companies. At this point of time, definitely, as you rightly mentioned, the manufacturing India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, especially the defense, India as an economy from the past 10 years, we have been the net importers. We are turning right now from net importers to last year, the defense exports were around 22,000 crores, and this number is going to go up. Apart from the domestic use, Indian companies have become the exporters at this point of time. We're going to see a lot of activity that's going to take place, defense and aviation, the fighter jets, and also the aviation as a space is concerned. So this sector seems to be very interesting at this point of time. There is a clear-cut order book and also earning visibility is there in defense. So one need to chip in into the right companies which have the capabilities of education, and also the valuation, the entry point is extremely crucial for these companies to make any kind of serious investment decisions are concerned. But definitely the defense is the theme that's going to be there on the cards for next coming years also. And what we witnessed in the Operation Sindoor also, the areas where India has to focus, that's where the defense spending is going to go up. And also in terms of the defense exports are concerned, Indian companies proven its capabilities and strength during this Operation Sindoor. That's where the other companies, other countries like Indonesia, Philippines, and African nations are looking to import our Indian products at this point of time. And there will be a point definitely because of our capabilities, and also the pricing is the game changer for defense companies. Definitely the West also, there might be a time they will look for Indian products are concerned in terms of the defense as the space is concerned.
All right, Kranti Bhatini, as always, pleasure having you right here with us this morning on News 9.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
And before we slip into another break, let's look at the global headlines that we're tracking for you this Friday morning. US President Donald Trump announces new trade agreement with China but provides no specific details about what that deal includes. And yet again, Donald Trump blasts Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, says Powell isn't cutting interest rates fast enough despite cooling inflation. US dollar dips to its lowest level against the euro in over 3 years as investors grow nervous about political influence over the Federal Reserve. Meanwhile, White House says it has no immediate plans to refill the strategic petroleum reserves, which remain at their lowest level since the 1980s. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says Brussels is reviving the latest US tariff proposal and is preparing for both a deal or a possible retaliation. Iran's supreme leader warns that Tehran will strike US military bases if attacked again in the first address since the Iran-Israel ceasefire. Walmart CEO Doug McMillon meets India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, pledges support to India's economic vision by targeting $10 billion in annual sourcing from India. Chinese automakers expand into African markets with electric and hybrid vehicles as trade restrictions in the US and Europe drive a pivot in global strategy. And finally, Amazon chief Jeff Bezos and journalist Lauren Sanchez begin a lavish 3-day wedding celebration in Venice. Celebrities including Bill Gates, Oprah Winfrey and Kim Kardashian join the party. All these stories on the other side of the break. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
It's never easy to choose a new path, stand out in the crowd, to have your own new identity. The journey to self-reliance begins when you're fully prepared. Tata Motors Commercial Vehicles presents the new Ace Pro, now in bi-fuel, EV and petrol variants. So get ready to say it loud. Ace Pro, ab meri bari.
पार्टी हॉर्न्स भी होने चाहिए, मंगा लेती हूँ। खाकरा मंगवा लेती हूँ। थेपला भी मंगवाएगी। थेपला भी मंगवा लेती हूँ। अलग-अलग मत ऑर्डर कर, एक बार में मंगवा। एफर्ट्स और पैसे दोनों बचाओ। सेविंग्स की विद्या तो कोई तुझसे सीखे। जब पैसा हो बचाना, फेडरल बैंक से रिश्ता बनाना।
Welcome back. US President Donald Trump used the White House event to take fresh aim at Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, criticizing him for not moving fast enough to cut interest rates, even as inflation pressures have eased. The event also served as a platform to push what Trump has called one big beautiful bill, a sweeping legislative package still being finalized on Capitol Hill. The proposal would extend Trump's 2017 tax cuts, boost funding for the military and border security, and add roughly $3 trillion to the national debt. Take a look.
And according to the Council of Economic Advisors, these reforms will protect or create more than 7 million jobs, add 3.1% to economic growth, reduce taxes for the typical American by nearly 15%, and increase take-home pay for the normal family of 4 by at least $13,000, and that takes place immediately. That's not bad, right? Look, I'm looking at that guy back there, right? That's pretty good. And if we had a person over at the Fed that would lower interest rates a little bit, that would be helpful too. It's hard to believe. This is on top of, we have to fight this guy. He's not doing the job. Each point that he keeps it up is the equivalent of $300 billion. $300 billion. So if he lowered it to, it would save $600 billion. We have to work hard with cuts on that, right? That's a lot of cutting. And this guy could do it so easily. We don't have inflation. Well, we might have inflation. Yeah, and if you do, you raise the rate a little bit. That's okay.
The US dollar slipped to a fresh 3.5-year low against the euro on Thursday as growing concerns over the Federal Reserve's independence weighed on market confidence. Investors appeared increasingly uneasy about political pressure influencing US monetary policy, undermining trust in the Fed's ability to steer inflation as well as interest rates. Here's a report.
Donald Trump's difficult relationship with Federal Reserve Chief Jerome Powell is ruffling markets once again. The Wall Street Journal says the president has considered naming the next boss of the central bank before Powell's term ends in 2026, potentially creating what analysts have called a shadow Fed. The dollar sank to new 3.5-year lows versus the euro in Asian morning trade Thursday following the news. One market watcher told Reuters that any such move by Trump would raise questions about the Fed's independence and potentially undermine its credibility. The report follows renewed tensions this week. Trump on Wednesday called Powell terrible for not cutting interest rates more quickly. Meanwhile, the Fed chair appeared before a Senate panel and gave no sign he was in a hurry to make more cuts.
We're committed to returning inflation sustainably to 2% and keeping it there in the long run. And what we're doing now is we had cut rates by 100 basis points, so they've come down quite a bit. And when the time is right, I expect that will continue.
On a second day of testimony Wednesday, Powell said Trump's tariffs could spur inflation, potentially complicating a decision on rates. That issue is now likely to come back into focus as the clock ticks down to the White House's July 9th deadline for trade deals. As for possible successors to Powell, Trump says he's narrowed it down to 3 or 4 names. The leading contenders are reportedly former Fed Governor Kevin Warsh, National Economic Council head Kevin Hassett, current Fed Governor Christopher Waller, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
Now seeing the US President Donald Trump has lashed out at Zohran Mamdani after the 33-year-old Democratic Socialist secured victory in New York City Democratic mayoral primary. In a post on Truth Social, Trump labeled Mamdani a 100% communist lunatic and said the Democratic Party had crossed the line. He also took personal shots at Mamdani's appearance and intelligence and criticized his support from Democrats like Alexandra. Mamdani campaigned on cost of living issues, including rent freezes and expanded public services. His win has widened internal party tensions, prompting 2 union leaders to resign from the party's leadership board. And moving to US and India relations now, Walmart Inc.'s top leadership led by President and CEO Doug McMillon met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi this week, reaffirming the US retail giant's growing partnership with India. The meeting was McMillon's 4th interaction with the Prime Minister and comes during his 2nd visit to India in less than 18 months. The two sides discussed Walmart's expanding presence in India, including its key investments in Flipkart, PhonePe, Walmart Global Tech and Walmart Sourcing. The meeting also focused on Walmart's commitment to support India's ambitious export goals. McMillon thanked Prime Minister Modi for what he called a valuable meeting, adding that Walmart is proud to support India's vision by aiming to source $10 billion worth of goods annually from India. And Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and journalist Lauren Sanchez kicked off 3 days of extravagant wedding celebrations in Venice on Thursday. The star-studded guest list included big names like Bill Gates, Oprah Winfrey and Kim Kardashian. Our next report has more. Take a look.
Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez kicked off 3 days of lavish wedding celebrations in Venice on Thursday, with tight security shielding their VIP guests from protesters. Among the newly arrived guests were the likes of Bill Gates, Orlando Bloom, Oprah Winfrey, and Kim Kardashian. Some 200 to 250 A-listers from show business, politics, and finance are expected to take part in what has been widely dubbed the wedding of the century. It's estimated to cost around $50 million. Guests were gathering on Thursday evening in the cloisters of Madonna dell'Orto, a medieval church that hosts masterpieces by 16th century painter Tintoretto. The couple is set to exchange vows on Friday on the small island of San Giorgio. Celebrations will conclude on Saturday, with the main wedding bash to be held at the Arsenale. The event has stirred a debate about its impact on one of the world's most beautiful cities. On Thursday, an activist climbed one of the poles in the main St. Mark's Square. unfurling a banner with the words, "The 1% ruins the world." Not all of Venice welcomed him, because there are citizens who have totally rejected the economic system he supports, he said. Tourists who witnessed the display had mixed reactions to the message.
I think we should talk about these things, but to be conscious about something that happens in the world, not just be silent.
I'm from not this country, so I think a person as an individual has the right to hold the wedding wherever they want to hold it.
And that's a wrap on this edition of the Morning Brief at 9. News continues right here on News 9 after this short break, so stay tuned.
Who am I?
Nobody can crack that mystery.
There is a certain expectation of me.
That's the only contradiction.
Life itself is stranger than fiction.
I was a perfectly normal person born in an abnormal world.
I really didn't understand why is it different.
Just imagine a child who is bullied every day.
Boys school में कुछ लड़का लोग मेरे साथ sexual abuse किए.
मुझे तेरे बारे में सब पता है और मैं तेरा rape कर लूँगा.
You also start to stigmatize.
अरे ये तो time pass है.
Sex doesn't come in the picture. Sex comes very late. Then there are man-made narratives.
Why do you walk like that? Why do you sway so much? So you can understand the trauma of a person who's trapped in a wrong body.
But nothing can bind life.
We have to reclaim the lost position. We fought for more than 10 years.
Today I'm the mother of the industry.
I'm a first transgender member judge.
You can't walk in everybody's shoes.
This is what I'm comfortable with. They just are what they are.
You become the life yourself.
That is the change that I was looking for.
When I recognize myself is a small story, but it's an interesting one.
What began as a day of celebration turned into a tragedy. The High Court has stepped in and political blame game has ensued. Why is it so difficult in Indian society to say no, mistake has been made? This timeline is going to make things very clear. This was very much avoidable. Unparalleled scene, unimaginable to watch. America and Europe are reaping what they have sowed. Is this the new frontier of the American politics?
Light, camera, and action. Kick back, relax, grab your favorite snack because News 9 is here with your weekend dose of entertainment. It's time to take a deeper dive into the buzzworthy happenings of the entertainment world. From celebrity gossips to exclusive conversations, from nostalgic moments to News 9's pick of the week, don't worry, we've got you covered here. And I hope you've grabbed your popcorn by now because News 9's page 3 is here to serve you everything that we call entertainment. So do stay tuned every Saturday and Sunday, 2:30 p.m.
Is this politics of appeasement?
That is the ground reality.
The violence continued unabated for the next 24 hours. Why is there Mamta for Pahalgam but not for Murshidabad?
Everyone in Pakistan is saying that India has punished us. You are all agreeing that Operation Sindoor is a success. तो प्रॉब्लम क्या है? किसका नमाज-ए-जनाजा निकल रहा था बहावलपुर में और रावलपिंडी में?